What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. My name's Kyle. Tonight it's August 1st. Welcome to August. We officially have football this week. Thursday night, we're going to be able to see the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Las Vegas Raiders. So we got that to look forward to. In this video, we're just going to go over some of the most recent training camp news, and there's a lot of stuff coming out now that we're starting to get padded practices and whatnot. But we have to. I'm gonna hop into a screen share here, but we got to cover the big one, and then I'll kind of go over some projections and things like that. But it is Deshaun Watson. Finally the suspension came out. We'll see if the NFL upholds it or if they want to, maybe appeal it and things like that. But he's been suspended 6 games. The judge, Sue Robinson, went through and she posted like a 15-page document. So the NFL is going to take their time to review it. There is potential for the NFL. I think they have until Thursday to appeal it or push for more games. But for now, we have hard data here with Deshaun Watson being gone 6 games. So what does that mean for fantasy? I believe currently, like I've been doing drafters in best ball drafts all day, and he currently goes like in the 11th or 12th round, which is kind of like a top 15 QB. And where I have him projected right now, and you can get access to my projections in the link in the description below, 2022 draft kit. But in total points per game, like he's my QB 30, which isn't much. But if I factor in how many points, like how many games he's actually going to play, which is roughly 11, and I filter by points per game, he comes in as my QB 12. So I do think he can be serviceable as a QB 1 for you this year. Regardless of how you feel, I think, it's not a good look what Deshaun Watson just went through and all the lives and the people and things that he affected. But for fantasy, I have him averaging kind of what like Kirk Cousins or Trey Lance. So for me, where he's going to be in my rankings, you can kind of see I have Wilson, Lance, Watson, Kirk, and Aaron Rodgers there. He's going to be kind of rated as a fringe quarterback 1. I think when you're drafting, you're going to see probably once you see Derek Carr go, Matthew Stafford's usually the next guy, but he's going to be in this range of like Trevor Lawrence, Jameis Winston, sometimes Justin Fields. He's going to be kind of that 15th or 16th QB off the board. And then that also affects some of the other players in Cleveland. So for me, it didn't affect the running backs too much. I still think Nick Chubb's a fringe running back 1, and I do have Kareem Hunt as kind of a top 30 flex play. So I like both running backs there in Cleveland, but this is going to boost, guys like Amari Cooper, guys like David Njoku. I have Cooper kind of chilling here as a fringe top 30 receiver. I think he looks good as a wide receiver 3 in our lineups. And this is also a nice boost for a guy like Donovan Peoples-Jones, who is lower on my list, but he can be really productive towards the second half of the year when Deshaun comes back. So I think for best ball leagues, I like DPJ, but we like Amari Cooper now somewhere in the 6th round. And then David Njoku, he's my tight end number 14. So if you want to wait on tight end, you can get one of these guys like Njoku and pair him with somebody else, and you might have something there. It sounded like Njoku was making some plays in practice today. So that's the Deshaun Watson news. Again, the NFL has, I think, until Thursday at some time to appeal it and maybe push for more games. Everyone's kind of shocked at how few games he is suspended, but nonetheless, we have to go with what we got. So I have Jacoby Brissett playing 6 games and Deshaun Watson getting the other 11. But we'll move on here. Let's go and look at some of the other player news here. At the top of the list, you have a note here on Van Jefferson. So Coach Sean McVay announced Van Jefferson will undergo a knee surgery this week and is uncertain for the Bills week 1. So for me, this is probably a pup candidate to start the year, whether it's 4, 5, 6 games for Van Jefferson. He's probably not going to be ready to play week 1. The Rams host Buffalo to open the 2022 season in 38 days, and Jefferson will be up against the clock to be ready against specialists after a specialist advised a cleanup procedure. So he had off-season surgery. That's a good reason why some of his numbers went down towards the end of the year. But Van had off-season surgery. Now he needs a cleanup. And the Rams are a heavy 3 wide receiver offense. They've kind of been that way since Sean McVay took over. And now if you're saying Van Jefferson's not going to be 100%, say he did play week 1, he's not going to be 100%. So it's going to take him time to get acclimated. That just pushes me more into Cooper Kupp, more into Allen Robinson. And then you're going to see this competition for the wide receiver 3 spot be between Ben Skowronek and Tutu Atwell. I don't think Tutu is going to be the 3rd guy. I think it's going to be this Ben Skowronek who was getting snaps in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl as well. So Ben Skowronek, probably the wide receiver 3, but for fantasy, I really don't think we care, Van Jefferson or Ben. They're probably just off my list. If anything, it just makes me like Allen Robinson even more in the 5th or the 6th round. And then Tyler Higbee's down there as well. So Van Jefferson, we'll see if he can get back on the field. But for now, we shouldn't be drafting Van Jefferson at the moment. So let's keep it moving. And again, I'm just calling out fantasy players here. Here's a note on Will Fuller, who is expected to be signed soon. Pro Football Network's Aaron Wilson reports Fuller is being monitored by multiple NFL teams, but is more likely to join a team later in the preseason. And this is very interesting because you got players going down, you got players. Van Jefferson, he's a wide receiver 3. Will Fuller could be an excellent wide receiver 3 for a team. We'll get to a note later too, but there was a Cowboys injury today. James Washington, something like that. And you can also see Will Fuller signing with Deshaun Watson in Cleveland. So Will Fuller, interesting guy. It says the only team linked to Fuller at any point this offseason has been the Browns, and that was seemingly just dot connecting with Deshaun Watson. So Fuller missed all of last season with that weird finger injury. We haven't seen him since he got suspended for the PEDs in Houston. So it's been a good year and a half or so since we've seen a good, healthy Will Fuller. But man, there's a lot of teams right now that could probably use a guy, and we're just going to wait and see what the chips do. Again, James Washington got hurt today. Maybe Dallas, takes a look at signing a receiver here. The Packers, who are currently without second-round pick Christian Watson, could be a sleeper for Fuller here. So if you're drafting best ball leagues, I think I do like snagging Will Fuller. I don't know where he goes. Where's Fuller being drafted? It's probably real late, like 17th, 18th round. So the opportunity cost is so low, but it's nice to finally have a note that says teams are kind of kicking the dust here on Will Fuller. And I'm looking to see where he's being drafted. Down here at 185. So this is really late. We're talking 17th, 18th round of best ball leagues right now. So Will Fuller, we should expect him to sign hopefully in the next week or two. We'll keep it moving here. Here is the James Washington news. There was a video too that came with this. So if you want to check that, just go to Twitter and find some news there. But ESPN's Adam Schefter reports the Cowboys fear James Washington suffered a Jones fracture in training camp. So this is huge, just because Michael Gallup's not going to be ready. So now they're down. Of course, they have CeeDee Lamb. We love CeeDee Lamb as a second-round pick, a top 5 potential wide receiver this year. But there is going to be a huge competition between James Washington, Jalen Tolbert. These guys were the lead dogs to be the second and third wide receiver, and we know Gallup's not going to be ready until October. And now this just pushes the priority on Jalen Tolbert, kind of locked into that number 2 wide receiver role. After him, they do have Noah Brown and a couple other guys that are making some plays, but it looks like James Washington could be out for a while here. And again, that's just leading to more speculation that a wide receiver could be added. There was also a Cole Beasley tweet about a week or two ago that, hey, I'd play with Dak Prescott again, sure. So I fully expect once the Dallas Cowboys do their medical data here with James Washington and see how severe it is, see how long he's going to be out, I do think James Washington probably going to be a pup list guy. Maybe he misses half the season. Who knows? So I fully expect there's T.Y. Hilton out there, Will Fuller's out there, Cole Beasley. I even think some veterans like Emmanuel Sanders could be an interesting play. So we'll see what the Cowboys do here, and I expect something to be done within the next week or so as they need to add a camp body. So James Washington, stop drafting him in drafters, best ball, underdog, whatever, and consider Jalen Tolbert. He's a guy that's probably going to be moving up draft boards. Where's Jalen Tolbert being drafted? So right now he's pick 140. Kind of in the 11th round, he's probably going to sneak up into the top 130 here. His ADP should shift as people get news of the James Washington injury. And before I get into some other news here, I just want to say one of the best Twitter follows right now. Well, you should follow me at theFellowKGB. But one of the best Twitter follows right now that you can have is this NFL Beat Writers. It's their hashtag or their username is 32 Beat Writers. I have alerts on, but basically what they do is they are just on top of it. They are tweeting out plays. They're tweeting out stuff basically every few minutes here. Here's a play of Alec Pierce making a move on a DB, but they're just continuously finding the beat writers and tweeting out the reports here. And these guys do a really good job. Everything is basically this is the one. If you could follow one account, NFL Beat Writers will get you ready and get you all the training camp news and notes you need. Quick note here on running back Justin Jackson. He signed with the Detroit Lions, which is very interesting. I always liked Justin Jackson. He's just had trouble staying healthy. He's been fantasy relevant in times when he's needed to be the starting running back. So this is a good quality running back, adding him to the Lions backfield. Let's take a look at the Lions depth chart here, because it's going to be a competitive depth chart. They do have DeAndre Swift, of course. Jamal Williams is kind of locked in there as the number 2 running back. But after that, Craig Reynolds made some moves last year, Godwin Igwebuike, and Jamar Jefferson. So there's 3 running backs here that are going to be vying for position with Justin Jackson. I got to assume Justin Jackson's got a good shot at, being the 3rd or 4th running back here. But this is more so just injury, information, stash it, file it away. If anything happens to Swift or Jamal Williams, you could see a nice role for Justin Jackson. And we like Justin Jackson as a receiving running back. So if anything, again, this is an emergency thing. If anything happens to one of the top 2 guys, maybe we see the talented back here, Justin Jackson, do some things. Let me hit back here. What's the next news blurb here? Bears just trying to trade Tevin Jenkins. Here we go. We should probably spend some time on Jamison Crowder. So he's missed practice to start the Bills training camp here. He returned to practice today. Crowder missed the first few days of camp, but returned to do some position drills and individual work on Monday. As a 29-year-old receiver with some injury history, the Bills will likely be limiting his workload throughout camp. While he was gone, Isaiah McKenzie made a number of big plays as the team's 3rd wide receiver. It's hard to say who will have that role by week 1, but Crowder is far from a lock to land a starting gig at this point. So the roles have kind of reversed. I think if people were doing projections before training camp opened, everyone was like, Jamison Crowder's he's the slot receiver. He's the clear slot receiver man. But the way that they paid Crowder and the way that they paid Isaiah McKenzie, they're kind of on the same deal here. So if you like to follow the money, I'm just looking up the Bills salary cap and the cap hits for this year. You got to scroll on down kind of far here. And we have Jamison Crowder and Isaiah McKenzie both basically paid $1.9 million this year. So it's kind of like a fair fight in terms of who they're paying to be the slot receiver. But Isaiah McKenzie, he's the healthy guy right now. He's got the history in this offense. He knows the offense. He's got chemistry with Josh Allen. Right now, he has the inside leg on the starting slot receiver position. And I do think if you're playing best ball leagues, this is the guy. Isaiah McKenzie's been one of the biggest risers, I think, in the last week or 2 as people are starting to see all the camp notes and things coming out about Isaiah McKenzie. So I like McKenzie in terms of where he is being drafted. Let's take a peek here. He's currently about 184, right next to Will Fuller here. If you look like a week or 2 ago, he was, in the 200s down here by Zay Jones, James Washington, Devin Duvernay. So definitely a guy on the rise here. And of course, Crowder, definitely a guy on the fall here. He's up here at 137. So that's a little high for me. I'm going with Isaiah McKenzie for sure. And I do have that reflected in my projections. A quick note here on Kyler Murray. He tested positive for COVID. I think Pete Carroll also did as well. It sounds like he's out a minimum 5 days. So it's 2022, summer of 2022, and we're still dealing with COVID protocols and things like that. So not a bad thing. I guess it's good that it happened now, not, later in the season. So Murray tested positive for COVID, and he'll be out just a few days here. There's the James Washington news. I probably should have put this earlier in the show because with the Deshaun Watson stuff, we finally got a ruling on that. But then Alvin Kamara, he had a court hearing today, and the court hearing is now postponed for another 60 days. So he got this postponed, I think it was in the spring. He got pushed back to August 1st. Today, he was at practice. He didn't even attend. So his lawyers took care of this, pushed it back another 60 days. And basically 60 days from now is going to put it 30 days out is basically September 1st and then October 1st. So there's potential, or it's basically Alvin Kamara is guaranteed probably to play the first 4 games of the season, I think, right now. And then who knows, once this stuff happens October 1st, the new trial, there's potential for Alvin Kamara to miss some time in the middle to the end of the season. So there is some risk drafting Alvin Kamara. Right now, what I did is I projected him to play about, I took 2 or 3 games, about 2.5 games off of his total projections, and that did move him up. I think right now, if you want to draft Alvin Kamara, let's see here. I have my PPR running backs. I have him as my RB11, right in between Saquon Barkley, Javonte Williams, Leonard Fournette, and these guys are all kind of round 2 players, end of round 2, and I believe Kamara's ADP right now is somewhere in the 3rd round. Let me double check that. Alvin Kamara, 28.5. So one of the first 5 picks in the 3rd round. That's kind of where he's going, and you might see him start to creep up a little bit into the 2nd round. And we know the court date doesn't happen till October 1st. But now we just have to worry about a suspension maybe mid-season or end of season. So there is some risk involved. For me, I like too many other players in his range. Like, I guess, give me Barkley, give me Javonte, give me Leonard Fournette. Even Nick Chubb and James Conner have some appeal over Alvin Kamara. I just don't know if I like the uncertainty here. And if you want, to target Kamara or the Saints, I think getting Jameis Winston, Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, Jarvis Landry, Adam Troutman, there's other ways to kind of build that around there. And I don't know. I'm kind of torn on Kamara right now, but it sounds like he's going to be there week 1 to play. So let's keep it moving here. Just Brian Edwards injury note here. This is an important one because there's some notes about Elijah Mitchell and kind of the offseason surgery and just cracked ribs and things like that he suffered last year. But here we go. The rookie Tyrion Davis-Price, who they drafted in the 3rd round. ESPN's Nick Wagoner believes TDP and Jeff Wilson could be involved early and often. So he added that the concerns around Elijah Mitchell's health are real. He still predicted Mitchell would handle the bulk of the work, with Davis-Price pitching in for short yardage duties. After rushing for almost 1,000 yards as a rookie, Mitchell has undoubtedly earned a stranglehold on the starting gig. Still, it makes sense to offload some bruising work onto Davis-Price's plate after Mitchell struggled with injuries down the stretch last year. If Wilson is also pitching in for carries, deciphering the backfield will become an issue. So this is an interesting one. We know Kyle Shanahan, he's kind of untrustworthy, with his running backs. And last year, Mitchell took over the job, man. He was getting, upwards. He had several games over 20 carries, and they just were banging him, all season long. And it looks like they went out and they drafted Tyrion Davis-Price in the 3rd round. He kind of reminds me of CJ Anderson, just kind of like a bowling ball type back, a really solid, just kind of all around back. But he could be the guy nipping touchdowns at the goal line, so that's a concern. Now we know Elijah Mitchell's he's not gonna catch a lot of passes either. So if you're removing passes and short yardage goal line work from Elijah Mitchell, that makes me a little bit hesitant to draft him. I think currently his ADP is somewhere in the 6th or the 7th round. Where is Elijah? Elijah going about 68th overall, so that puts him in the beginning of the 7th round. So to me, he's kind of off my board here. I'd much rather draft Tyrion Davis-Price much later, and don't sleep on Jeff Wilson. And there's still Trey Sermon lingering in the background, but there's a lot of things pointing down for Elijah Mitchell. Factor in Trey Lance, nipping touchdowns near the goal line as well. So to me, I'm kind of out on Elijah Mitchell. And here we go. We have Buffalo Zack Moss. ESPN's Elena Getzenberg believes Zack Moss is trending toward having a role in the offense. She said here the same of 2nd round running back James Cook, though that should be the expectation given his elite receiving profile. Moss was made a healthy scratch multiple times in 2021 and was rumored to be a trade candidate this offseason. It would be an upset for him to play a role in the Bills' offense this year, but that is now something worth considering. If Moss is getting touches, the Bills' backfield will become a nightmare to figure out on a weekly basis. Singletary still projects to lead the team in carries, though his grip on that job is tenuous at best. And this is something that I've been on the last couple of weeks. I like to, especially because I do so many best ball leagues, I have been drafting Zack Moss in the 20th round just because he has like a 0 ADP on here. If I were to look down the line here, I mean, he's basically free in drafts right now. I mean, people are cutting him in dynasty leagues. People are just kind of dumping Zack Moss. And here we go. He doesn't even register on the ADP. And I believe I have a handful of shares of him. Let me take a look and see how many I got of Zack Moss. But right now I have 13 shares of Zack Moss, 11% of my leagues here. So, I mean, so he gets a role, whether, that's 5 to 10 touches per game. I think there's opportunity for him to be a guy that pops off for a touchdown or two. He's a solid receiving back. He can do goal line duties as well. And that was kind of the thing last year. People were expecting Moss to be more involved than Singletary, but Singletary just balled out and took it over. But anyways, if anything happens to Singletary, Zack Moss is going to be the 1st and 2nd down back with James Cook still doing his receiving workload. So I do think Moss should be treated as a handcuff for Singletary. And I think I'm moving Moss up my rankings here. So don't sleep on Zack Moss, a good running back. And I mean, he's just never Zack Moss, he's been frustrating for fantasy owners, but he's never really been healthy for a full season. The 2020 season, he got hurt, I think ankle injuries. Same thing kind of happened last year. And I just remember listening to an interview of him saying, like, this is the first year where I'm coming into camp healthy and I'm ready to roll. And don't forget, I'm trying to pull up Zack Moss's numbers. Last year, he did rush for 4 touchdowns. He did catch 23 passes for 197 yards and a touchdown. And I just want to show you, like, look at his first 6 games here, double digits. He was catching 2 to 3 passes per game, getting some rushing touchdowns. He had some games of double-digit carries. He was a good player the first half of the year. So don't sleep on Zack Moss. I think a lot of people have counted him out, and it's about time we start keeping an eye on him. KJ Hamler, Denver Broncos wide receiver, activated from the PUP list here. He had the ACL and the hip injury, suffered the torn ACL and the dislocated hip in week 3 of last year. So typically for these kind of injuries, you want to be 9 to 10 months out. So he's on track. This is good news. We're going to get him in training camp, and he's going to operate as the Broncos number 4 wide receiver. And in terms of best ball leagues, he's a guy, I mean, talk about the deep ball with Russell Wilson. This is a really good potential guy that you can get late in drafts just to pad as like one of your bottom receivers on your depth bench here. But if anything happens to Sutton, Judy, Patrick, Hamler is going to be a busy guy. And I think for now, I'm just operating him with best ball in mind. I'm not going to draft him in redraft, but best ball, I'm open to KJ Hamler. Let's keep it moving. Deebo Samuel got paid. Good for him. We'll cover 1 or 2 more notes here, and then we'll get out of here for the day. I guess this is somewhat important. Mitchell Trubisky for the Steelers. Basically been told the job is his to lose. King also noted Kenny Pickett is currently taking 3rd-team reps behind Trubisky and Mason Rudolph. Apparently, it's from camp sounds. It sounds like Mason Rudolph has been kind of the best quarterback of the trio. But now today I did see Kenny Pickett get reps with the 2s, Mason Rudolph with the 3. So I think they're gonna try and let Kenny Pickett work his way up, but it is Mitchell Trubisky's job. We have to operate with that in mind. And as long as the Steelers are, around 500, as long as they're in the wild card hunt, you're probably going to see Mitchell Trubisky start those games. So I think if you play super flex leagues or if you're drafting best ball leagues, Mitchell Trubisky can be your QB3. I think he's a guy that in super flex, you don't want to start him every week, but he might be a nice tool to have on your bench to call up if you need it. And then for best ball, an interesting guy. He's going to run the ball and he's got good weapons. Arguably, I think I'm excited for Trubisky because this is a much better situation than he ever had in Chicago. He's got a lot of playmakers, good running game. Just the old offensive line is garbage, in a good defense as well. Let's end the day here with a Miles Sanders note. Eagles' Nick Sirianni vouched Miles Sanders as the team's top running back after an offseason that included Sanders telling fantasy managers not to draft him and that he needs more opportunities. His coach finally gave some clarity, we think. It was earlier reported that he'd been taking reps with the 2nd-team offense. They were giving Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell, first-team reps earlier in the week. But Sirianni said it simply it can be chalked up to the way the numbers work. Miles is our guy, and we like to rotate our backs, but he is the guy. While this may be true, and RBCC or RBBC could be brewing, running back by committee, Sanders said this season he is out to get the respect he deserves. And last year, career lows in carries, yards, and failed to score a single touchdown. Second-year back Kenneth Gainwell figures to have a bigger role in the offense this season after scoring 6 TDs as a rookie. So it's a messy situation between the two. If you're drafting Miles Sanders, he costs a 7th or 8th round pick. Kenneth Gainwell costs a 12th or 13th round pick. I'm taking Gainwell every time. And in my numbers here, I mean, I got them right next to each other. Sanders, 34, and Gainwell, my RB, 35. I do have Sanders leading the team in carries. And rushing yards as well, but you also have to factor Jalen Hurts is actually their running back 1. He's going to dominate the goal line opportunities, I think. But I did give Sanders some touchdowns, but I really like Kenneth Gainwell as a receiving back. He's kind of a Naheem Hines type. So that's going to do it for today. Let me just see if we got any best ball drafts to make. No picks to make, but that's going to do it. It's Monday night. I'm going to keep churning the news here, find some more training camp news for you guys. I'll probably do this regularly. So if you guys like these training camp updates, let me know in the comments. I can continue to do some more of these. And I'm just excited. Football is back. Training camps, preseason games right around the corner. It's a good time. August 1st. Welcome to the football season. So thank you for your time. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff if you're new. And we'll see you in a future video. Peace.